It's episode 100! Woo! If you were to give your student self a life hack, what would it be? Evernote? And then you wouldn't have lost your journal of like a decade?
Oh, yeah. So I wrote a daily journal for a decade. And then one day my Microsoft Word file corrupted. And I was like, oh well. That's the end of my journaling then.
Almost all of the problems in my life can be fixed by a 10-minute walk, a good night's sleep, a glass of water, or a wank.
Seriously, this is exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
Brethren.
Unbelievable.
So,
fuck, I've got nothing.
Sorry, man.
Who is the coolest person who listens to Modern Wisdom? My mum. My mum listens to Modern Wisdom, I suppose.
Okay, so mansplaining, manspreading.
Everything with man in it. Manchester.
What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
Trouble? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's episode 100. Woo! We've done 100 episodes of Modern Wisdom.
Really well.
Shit the bed. Honestly,
Doesn't feel like it.
I know.
It's because you've just suddenly gone
twice a week. Yeah, I know. But anyway, thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in over the last 100 episodes.
Do you remember the day we did the first podcast with you and we had the preamble of making the coffee and the coffee was too strong?
Oh,
that was for propane, right?
Strong. Yeah.
That
was our interview with you, and then podcasting just
look at CrossFit it was, yeah, exactly. 16 million listen minutes later and we're here.
Here we are.
So we've got a couple of special treats for you today. We're going to do Q&A. We asked for questions from people on the internet. Instagram have come up with some pretty good ones. Also, before I started this podcast as the name that it was, we did...
Here comes the hot potato.
We did a pilot episode, and originally it was called Mind and Matter. A bit of a shite name, I know. Mind and Matter, and we did a pilot episode on purpose and meaning. As a part of that, Yusef told us a story about when his testicle grew to the size of a lemon because he got a hydrocele, and then he tried to pop it in the shower, and then he had a number of other complications. And I've been asked a lot, because I keep referencing it, been asked to put this story in. So, you're going to get to hear it.
We've got the footage.
Right now.
Fine. I'm going to give you the full Monty. This is
Are you sitting comfortably?
This is a podcast about purpose, and we're going to spend the first 5 minutes talking about my ball on request.
Balls on demand.
Balls on demand, bod. Right. So, one day I was coming out of the shower, my flatmate saw my ball and said, "Yusef, that's really big. You need to do something about it." I said, "No, it's fine. It's always been like that." Chris is losing water out of his mouth.
What was the first time that you're like drying yourself off and you looked in the mirror and you're like,
It's very gradual, and because the male denial of health issues runs so deep, you end up just ignoring
Remembering
things.
that you are a doctor.
I am now. I wasn't then, so I was even more averse. And yeah, now it would be very different. I think I would go after like when it got to half the size rather than the full lemon.
So you're twice as sensitive to lemon ball now.
Yeah, exactly. My threshold.
Now that you've had a lemon ball, you know what
exactly. So the reason it's lemon ball is because it was the size of a lemon, and throughout that process, it was normal to begin with, and it gradually got bigger until there was this mismatch, and you end up justifying to yourself like, oh, there's always been a slight difference in size or whatever, and then it has to take someone else to say, no, come on.
Yusef is 3 times as big.
No.
So, went to the GP, they have a feel and they tell you, oh, it appears to be quite enlarged. And you're like, yep, I know. I'll just refer you to the radiologist. The radiologist gets some gel on it, calculates the volume for 20 minutes to tell you that it's big. And you're like, okay, I don't know why you needed to ultrasound that.
It's not normal, that, mate.
Oh, that's a bit big.
Got like sonar in the room.
Very...
Yep. It's enlarged.
Something, if anyone's ever had a ball ultrasound, or if you have one coming up, something that they do is the nurse will come in, tell you to drop your pants to your knees, leave, and then she'll come back and say, oh, I've got this tissue to cover your penis for decency. Because of course that's the important
How
bit.
many times have you heard this story?
No.
4 or 5? There's little gems that he leaves out. And that's what I'm like, you have to do.
Discovered.
Don't half-arse it. If you're going to do it properly.
I'm quite glad that you're happy to hear this again, because I feel
It's
like
brilliant.
most people get
If you released a
upset
book
at-
that was just this story, I'd buy it.
So they cover your penis for decency, of course, because that's
Do
that's the thing that's top on your mind.
they like sausage roll it? Or how
No,
does
they
it?
just drape. So
Okay.
So then you're sat there with just testicles exposed. I realize like I'm trying to do this as like a public relations message to encourage men who have any kind of testicular problems to go out and seek help, but it's probably not really advertising it very well.
You essentially
Was
have
the
to dress your dick up like Casper.
Because the tissue as well will have been penis and then ball, won't it?
Yeah.
So it just really highlights the fact that you have one leg.
Exactly. So ultrasounded, passed around a few different people, eventually to the urologist. This is the guy who's going to operate. Big Nigerian man. Starts examining me and then walks over to the light without explaining what he's doing, turns it off and comes back with a torch and shines a light through the ball and it lights up like a Christmas light. He looks really happy and says, "You see this? It means it's not a cancer." And you're like, "Oh, great. Okay." So he's really pleased about it. Later on found out that's called a transillumination to check for any kind of cancer. So that's good news if it lights up. By this point, it was getting pretty big, like the size of a little steroidal lemon.
Like a mango.
Mango, it was small mango, yeah. And it gets to the point where everything else like rests on it. When you're standing, it comes out horizontally. And like you couldn't hide it in work trousers. And I did a competition in a singlet, and obviously setting up for bench, whoever filmed me chose to use the angle like straight up towards it, and I had to cover down the pipe. I had to cover it up with a text box on the video. and Johnny,
They just said bench. No, it didn't.
I got a message from Johnny the next day saying like, "Great video, but why is the text box so big?" I said,
You could have got an emoji of a lemon.
Yeah, that would have been
Looking
good.
back.
Meta.
Very much. So at that point, been referred for surgery, watched the procedure on YouTube the night before, and started to get the fear. So I went into the shower and tried to burst it myself. And this is where we turned the lemon into a bean. So reshaped the lemon into more of a bean shape.
Through sheer force.
Through force, yeah.
So did you, for that to happen, was it an initial, like a short, sharp, like, no? Or was it sustained?
Yeah.
So you slowly applied the pressure. Was it in that position?
It was, yeah, hands clasped and like interlocked to get more purchase on it.
It's just as well that you're not practiced in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, be really good at it. So had the surgery.
Johnny, are you trying
imagining-
to think about different ways that you'd be able to squeeze a ball?
I'm thinking how I would do it, and then thinking about the amount of pressure.
You've interlaced your fingers.
Well,
It was
because
that, I think. So
You've interlaced your fingers. You can't do that.
I mean, you could really bear down
You
on
can apply a fair bit of pressure there.
I mean, you're self-limited, obviously. Like,
because it really hurts.
yeah, had
But
the
they hit as
surgery.
much as a normal ball.
I think slightly, yeah. It maybe slightly more because there's a lot more pressure around.
When you went in, did they say that's not the shape it was last time?
Why is it?
No,
Why is it being?
they didn't notice. But went in for surgery. If you've ever been for surgery as well, they draw a big L or a big R and an arrow pointing to the side that needs operated on. If they do surgery on anything that has two, so kidneys,
So
legs,
the wrong
whatever.
ball or the wrong leg, right?
Which does feel silly if you have like a really obvious deformity. But anyway, woke up from the surgery on oxycodone, very powerful opiate that makes you quite delirious and talking nonsense to the nurses. Coming to the consultant came up and said, "Okay, so you need to avoid sexual activity for at least a few days." You're like, "Oh, okay, great," because I was gonna just go home and try it out. But I think that was sarcasm. You definitely do not want that. You're waking up like in this kind of bloody jockstrap, and it's very painful and bleeding. So, but I guess they have to tell people that because people try. They one of the consultants who installed a colostomy bag on someone, which is like an anus on the front of your abdomen, basically like a rerouting your intestine, had to advise the patient post-operatively not to have sex through the hole. And this is clearly because some patient in the past will have tried and complicated things like...
I think complicated is really underrated that. Like if somebody tries to have sex with a small, fleshy anus type hole in your side, I imagine
Created by a man with a scalpel.
Is it just a little incision?
They just take a bit of bowel and move it out superficially to face.
And someone's just rooting around in it.
Terrible.
Terrible.
So that's the story.
There's aftermath, isn't there?
Should we save the aftermath for part 2?
Yeah, maybe because this is
So
already.
far,
It can be the chronicles of
Podball.
Yeah,
Podball part 1.
All we've talked about is testicles so far.
At the end of the day, the moral of the story is: if you have a problem like this, it's only going to get worse until you seek medical help.
So seek medical help
Seek
with
medical help.
purpose.
With purpose. Don't try and pop it yourself. See the GP. Don't be embarrassed about it. It's a typical male thing to not do that. I was lucky. It was a lemon ball, but it could be a nasty ball. So, and if it is a nasty ball, that can be fatal. So, feel your ball. Go see the GP.
And we're back.
You know, there's a really wholesome message to that story, which is that men are often afraid to go to the doctor for things out of maybe socio-cultural reasons, but that is proof that you shouldn't be
Don't
ashamed.
squeeze your own testicle.
Don't try and pop it.
Just go and see.
Just go and see a professional,
Your GP.
and
Thank you.
They'll squeeze it for you.
They will squeeze it for you. So I hope you enjoyed that story. It was unbelievable. The rest of that episode, by the way, was total shit. But that 10-minute period was...
I thought it was great. We
golden.
prepared loads of notes. It was only bad because of the audio quality and the tapping and
It's because you
flicking.
get immense FOMO when there's a piece of content that's created and it isn't
We
propagated.
prepared hard for that though.
It's like Life Fails that was just lost in the ether.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff you
All those
prepared,
fails.
all the stories you gave.
I know.
And they're gone, man, forever.
They are
Forever.
indeed. But so thank you, massive thank you to everyone who's tuned in. 100 episodes. We are 16 million listen minutes, several thousand subscribers, all that sort of stuff. And we got some cool questions, so we're going to do some questions. Do you want to do one of yours first, Johnny?
I mean, this is very, my first question. But questions for dummies. No, I don't mean that. Do you have any favourite novels? And, first part of the question
as well.
Are we doing that?
Can do, yeah.
Chris M. Hunt 1. I mean, I've just take the piss out of his question. It's a great question, Chris. Do you have any favourite novels? And then also, do you see any value in reading for pleasure?
Both of these things have been discussed with Chris Sparks. Spoke to him about this the other day, productivity coach. Because this is episode 100 and I'm starting to back up, that's almost definitely going to be coming after this. So either in the past or the future. Listen out for me talking about
Well, everything's either in the past or the future.
Yeah,
Apart from now,
is right now.
But not that. But now.
So 1984, George Orwell, like really good, easy read. A lot of implications that you can, if you're a bit of a self-development sort of buff, that you can take and apply to your own life. The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, great novel. What's the second part?
Do you see any value in reading for pleasure?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that I've learned, 1984 taught me a lot more, and a lot of those conclusions have had bigger impact on my life than reading a lot of self-help and productivity books. As Chris Sparks said it, 90% of self-help and productivity books are a 20-page blog post with 180 pages of examples.
They've often got like one idea in them as well, like one meaningful concept, and then the rest of it's just fluff.
Which is why like book summary services for those kind of books can be really good. But then
you don't have the time and attention, you don't have any context.
Well, then the one thing holds less meaning. Because it's like if I said to you, just concentrate when you're working. That's deep work, isn't it? Basically.
It's the whole thing.
Just when you work.
It's true.
What about you? Novels? I know that you're not massive.
So I'm starting to do it more. I don't do it very much. I used to read quite a bit for pleasure when I was younger. I read like the Harry Potter books. I read like the Philip Pullman stuff.
They were good.
Yeah.
Been bought by Amazon. His Dark Materials trilogy.
Really?
Netflix. Bringing out the full thing.
I'm looking forward to that, definitely.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Because they absolutely butchered Northern Lights.
There was an old film of Northern Lights and it was, horrendous.
What about you, man?
So, Albert Camus, The Stranger, written by someone whose mum was deaf and he was brought up in a kind of like really weird, like silent environment, and you can feel that in his writing. 1984, very good. Brave New World, and what was the other one? I've forgotten the other one.
Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Deep Work by Cal Newport.
I think I watch films more than books.
Okay. Needful Things by Stephen King.
Why when I said films?
So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Just because it was one of the best books that I've read, but the film was one of the worst films that I've seen.
Interesting.
And so I think they just, because there was a lot of subtext in the book, and then they managed to just
wreck it.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Fight Club, great book, great film.
Apparently, The Big Short book, I've just heard this,
Right.
is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that...
I love stuff.
Yeah,
That was a great film.
Really get into it. But going to the cinema, so like people read for pleasure often to like, you know, move into another world. I go to the cinema for 2 hours, transported.
Kind of.
Can't look at your phone. You have to sit and watch it.
I spoke to someone the other day who went on it was Mike, did a 4D cinema experience.
They've got a few of those now.
Weird.
They spray you with water and
and then like your
rattle
seat
you.
vibrates and
Awful.
I just like to be left alone.
To just
with
enjoy
a
it with
bag
a
of fruit
popcorn.
pastels. And
He said he was soaked by the end of it.
yeah.
Was he?
Smelly water as well.
I want to see The Equalizer 2. Denzel Washington. Denzel.
Good guy. Right. Sean J. What is a life hack you couldn't go without since introducing it? So we need to pick one that you've heard or you've brought up on a life hacks and you haven't sort of stopped since you've done that one.
I know what you were going to say.
Yeah.
What's he going to say?
Mine is split between physical and digital.
No, what's he going to say? What do you think he'll say?
Alfred.
Oh God! Yeah.
Were you not going to say Alfred?
But that actually tops it. If I had to pick what I was going to say in Alfred, I'd have to pick Alfred.
So if I just out life hacked your own life hack.
What was your original one?
Shut duffer.
Oh, the bum
Bless
spray.
me.
Bless
Yeah, I try not to poo when I'm not at home now because it just.
Do you hold it in?
Well, you shouldn't, but it makes the experience so much better.
What do you mean you shouldn't?
You shouldn't hold in poo longer than you have to.
But no one ever holds in poo longer than they have to.
I think they do, because otherwise you would just poo.
But it's not longer than they have to.
Longer than they would like to. But,
Okay.
yeah.
What if you really like feeling full?
I bet there are people that like feeling
If you're really
full.
hungry and you like to see like, well, like a poo, it'll be worse.
What about you, man? What are you thinking?
I don't know.
What about a couple? Any come to mind? I'll tell you what's interesting, Sean. Quite a good question. One of the things that we find is that the little cycles that we go through is like a natural evolution of life hacks. And over time, some will remain and many will be discarded. So a lot of them, I almost need to go back and caveat, like 101 and 102 and 103. I no longer do ROMWOD. It's not good for my spine, given my current spine health. I did a Whoop band review that now I'm not doing that, and now I'm considering getting the 3. So I've been in, gone out, and then come back again.
You get the flip side as well, where there's some that are so standard in your life now that you forget that they're even...
Automatic car, cruise control.
Probably the life hack then, like the master hack, is to just be constantly iterating and experimenting.
Yeah, you're right.
Because like all of us, the reason for life hacks is like we're all trying something new every time we speak.
Every
Even if it's
aspect of your
minor.
life, you're like, how can this
You're
be
like changing
better?
something, yeah. So
AirPods are probably
they're up there, yeah.
fairly ubiquitous in my life.
Yeah. Like things like Wi-Fi scales and, like stuff we've mentioned that I don't, it's just part of my day.
That's the thing. It's when the ones that, what is a life hack you couldn't go without since introducing it? It's the ones that integrate the most seamlessly with your life. That's why you like Alfred. That's why me and you like AirPods. For me, the best one, the one that has given me the highest return, single highest return from one life hack, sleeping with my phone outside of my room. If you put your phone outside of your room before you go to bed, or if you have a bedroom ban on your phone, it is the downstream from that, it's the same as getting a dog. Happiness, walks,
Just
fresh air.
sorted,
Like
yeah.
downstream, all the implications are great.
Yeah.
So yeah, phone outside of the room. Johnny,
I
if
still
you-
don't do that. I'm going to need to
Oh, man,
get an
it's
alarm
such a big
clock
one.
and do it.
So this is just based on recently the Byron Katie book, the Byron Katie process. I think that was a life hack.
Really?
Yeah. Just like lately been using it for, I think if you're able, I'm not so convinced now that it's like having this deep sort of like rewiring effect, but it just allows you to take something that like when you wake up in the morning, you're like really pissed off about it and you just reframe it, see it differently and use it to your advantage.
The process which works for you.
Exactly. And I think if you can take a bad thing and you're like, well, I'm just going to do this about it, then it's a great thing to have.
It's also great because if it eliminates boredom forever. Like if you're sat in a room on your own for 10 hours, you can be like,
Byron Katie, everything.
yeah.
Byron Katie, the fact
And
that
by the end
you're
of 10 hours, you just feel amazing.
Yeah.
Casper.
It's our go, Chris. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sorry, go on then.
Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Emma Hames PT, who I think wanted a date with you, actually. I probably shouldn't have said that.
What's your answer, Chris?
But I
Don't we
have.
have a date?
Would you rather have to tell everyone around you that you need to fart or pee your pants? And then she submitted in a second question, ellipsis, every day.
So
So would you rather have to tell everyone around you that you need to fart? So
Or
every time you
just-
fart, you're like, I've got to fart. Or
Just
every
pee
time
your
you pee your pants.
It's gotta be the fart one. Like, or else you're just pissing your pants all the time.
Yeah.
It's that there's no asymmetry. There's a big asymmetry.
it's cut and dry there, isn't it? Yeah.
I suppose it depends on if you need to fart. It's like every time you even get the hint of a feeling, you have to fart.
I don't have the hint of a fart much. Like mine are.
They just fall out.
I don't get false alarms. I don't have false alarms at all.
You must have situations in your life where you think I shouldn't fart here.
Well, the only
You
time that I
must.
think I shouldn't fart is when I think I might shart.
But you must be in the
It's the only
social
time.
setting
If you're
where
in-
you're like, I
in-
shouldn't fart here.
You've
closed
heard me
space.
fart.
I know, lots.
But you know what? We've been in long car journeys with you, and you've been very
You'd
considerate.
be very good.
But that's because of the seating position.
So it's not. So it.
The unkinked
It's not.
There's
It's
not
not
even
out
a
of courtesy.
consideration.
No, not at all.
It'll just be like-
Okay. Casper Sorensen. How much do Jonny and Yusef really bench?
I love that he's got Soren in his name.
It's kind of the
Soren.
sum of the letters of
Sorensen.
Sorensen.
What's your all-time PB not comp?
162.5.
Was it in a comp?
No, you said not comp.
Yeah, was it in a comp? No.
No.
So just
No.
in the gym?
Yeah.
Peaking?
Yeah. This was in the build-up prior to me going, right, I'm stopping powerlifting.
You got 172 in Gold Star. It was very
No,
like,
it wasn't. It wasn't in Gold Star. It was in David Lloyd, and we could not have called it a bench press.
okay.
So like dodgy plates, like bench height was questionable, and it was like crashing on my sternum.
So because it wasn't IPF legal, Johnny's not counting it, but I would say
Purity,
A
man.
lot
You gotta
of
love it. You
bros-
still love the sport.
I think you have to. It's like there's infinite examples.
Have you seen
like-
West Side versus the World?
Yes.
Thoughts?
Love just Louis Simmons, man.
Cool guy. You know,
Yeah.
Louis Simmons has never done a podcast,
Yeah.
and I'm trying.
Is he not on Rogan? I think he's on Rogan.
Is he?
Yeah.
So,
But I think he's pretty hard to get a hold of.
yeah, I'm trying to get Brian Carroll.
At the start of the West Side versus the World, it says like this was not Louis' idea, and then they just get. I've seen him. You know the barbell shrug guys. I've seen him take the barbell shrug guy who's like, I'm struggling with my clean, and Louis is just like bands. So he gets the barbell shrug guy to do a banded power clean, and like obviously you do the pull and it just crashes down. He's like move faster, and he just gets the guy to do banded power cleans and improves his clean.
it sounds
Louis Simmons
disgusting to do
is the boy.
Seth, best bench press.
150.
What
That was in Pinnacle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, when we went in and ruined
Yeah,
everyone's day.
because there was a leaderboard and we just turned up and
Took everything in all genders, all weight categories.
Yeah.
Identified as everything when you
How
were
much
in.
do you bench? Someone asked us that recently. Who asked us that? Do you remember that?
yeah, someone
My
did.
all-time PB is 140, but I don't train bench.
That'll be
Yeah,
Close grip.
Close
Yeah.
grip. Pause.
close grip, flat back, feet on the bench.
All of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not
Tempo.
that,
For
yeah.
8 reps.
Emon.
Because he never went below 8.
You got one?
God, this Jetto Moon has hammered the questions.
I've got a lot of them as well.
Thank you, Jetto.
From Jetto Moon. What's something you think every person should experience in their lifetime? Hot potato.
Be on a podcast.
Be on a podcast.
I think
That's a really good answer.
I think that at some point in your life, especially now, a lot of distraction, a lot of time spent double screening, triple screening, watching TV, being distracted, not having deep conversations. It is like doing these podcasts and having these discussions with whoever it is now, even people I got not that much, like Brian Carroll is a 300 and something pound powerlifter from Florida. And the only thing I have in common is we've both been seen by the same back specialist. And an hour and a half talking to him just flew by, and I loved it. And I'm going to go see him, and I'm going to go and chill with him. And you're like, the opportunity.
I can't believe you're going to go and chill with Brian Carroll.
It's ridiculous.
I've got Dave Tate on in a couple of weeks.
He will be an interesting guy.
I'll wait for you to get questions from him.
Yeah.
Andrew Doyle. Sat down with Andrew Doyle this Sunday. Went out for him in Edinburgh last night after his show at the Fringe. Had drinks with him.
Is he on the podcast?
It's on the podcast, indeed, yeah. So
be on a podcast.
Be on a podcast. Just have the opportunity, or if not, sit down with someone for 1 hour, both phones outside of the room, and have a discussion about something that you think will interest you. So like fake a podcast. I just think having deep conversations with people, you both leave, everyone that's a part of them leaves the room better than when you went in. So that's mine.
Yeah, because you can do a podcast about whatever you're interested in and just put it on iTunes. Like the cost's minimal, isn't it? As we well know.
It's free, isn't it? Yeah.
I think I'm a fucking prick. Do you want to tell that story?
We'll have to tell that story in full at some point.
Not on this one. We'll do it when
It's
I
long,
know.
but
yeah. Right. What about
don't
you, Seth?
ever say to Yusef that you can't do a podcast because cost is the reason, especially when you are part of a radio station.
And the content is made and it's been edited and mastered, and you're just thinking of a way to repurpose it. Right.
What's something that everyone should experience?
A Widowmaker experience. So that doesn't have to be a Widowmaker, which is...
Seriously?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I was going to say. The squat Widowmaker.
Well, so it's one
This
option.
is exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
Brethren.
Unbelievable.
So...
Fuck, I've got nothing.
Sorry, man. So a Widowmaker is a set of squats with your 10 rep max, and you do 20. And obviously, by definition, you think, well, that's not possible, but it is possible. It just takes 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
So you have the bar on your back, you do 10, you're done, you keep the bar on your back, you take 5 to 10 deep breaths, you go again, 5 to 10 deep breaths, you go again until you hit 20. You start to go deaf. You have ringing in your ears.
Taste blood.
Like everything just shuts out, and like all your cares drop away, and the whole being is just like, I hate this. Other ways to experience it: 10-minute ice bath, high dose psychedelics if that's what you're into.
2K max row.
2K max row. 10-day meditation retreat. Like anything that.
They're all quite different versions of that. I think a Widowmaker is very like.
It's the shortest way to do
it. You can't
visceral
get away from it.
Yeah,
2K max row, max effort 2K row, definitely.
The guys at Jim Jones, the guys who trained all the 300 actors, they call the 2K row like the test.
It's a horrible distance.
Because it's where you end up.
7 minutes.
Well, do we know the story about the selfie?
Your one, yeah. We
It was that first 2K row.
Yeah. Johnny, what's yours? Other than
that was going to be it. Like, so I think the thing that a lot of people don't experience, I think everyone should, is experiencing a high end or the end of your physical capability, or experience the line where your mind is like shouting at you to stop.
I think as well, what you've identified with the Widowmaker is that because of the way the programming's done, like we've always said this about powerlifting, if you can't lift the weight, you can't lift the weight. It doesn't go up. There's no struggle.
Yeah.
Whereas if you ever watched one of those videos where boxers run out of gas and then they kind of collapse to the floor, it's like, how fucked do you have to be to not be able to throw another punch?
Yeah.
It's the weight of your arm, not even going against gravity.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
It's just extending your arm out. Yeah, exactly. So
it's the thing I've always admired. Like I've always admired elite athletes. I've always admired like special forces, and it's not physical prowess. It's like
being able to
the ability to just tolerate.
Was it Goggins that was
like running on it?
It's David Goggins.
Yeah,
no, it's not. It is David Goggins, the one who who broke his feet and was still running.
Yeah.
Just like frightening people, terrifying people who are able to do that.
Oh wow, this is a fucking belter of a question. Paul Ogan, if you were to give your student self, we'll call this first student, like fresher, 18, If you were to give your student self a life hack, what would it be? Fuck. When I think about how different my life setup is now to when I was 18, jeez. Because when I was 18, phones weren't a problem, so I wouldn't need to do any phone reduction stuff.
Different thing, isn't it?
Pomodoros would be good for me being a student, but probably...
I don't really care about that. I think you've got to assume like you came out with your degree, so that's going to happen anyway, unless your life hack makes that harder.
Yeah, 5x5 would be probably something that I wish I'd known. Like,
I love that. Of all the things, it's like I just should have done more days where I just did 5x5. You're not wrong. Like you
or 5-3-1.
Yeah. So 5. I think like sitting down and explaining to my 18-year-old self just like nutrition and training.
We did so many stupid diet and nutritional.
Well, so I suppose that alone would have saved me hundreds of hours probably of my degree
and pounds of wasted money
on like surge workout fuel, the Anaconda protocol, Indigo 3G. It is a level playing field. Everyone's on Indigo 3G. It is a game changer.
What about you, Seth? One thing to Evernote, and then you wouldn't have lost your journal of like a decade.
Oh yeah, well, so I wrote a journal for a daily journal for a decade, and then one day my Microsoft Word file corrupted.
And then
I was like, oh well, that's the end of my journaling then. And I just thought, well, there's no point in continuing. Like it's really.
Didn't you say it was like the most autistic identification of the day?
Yeah, it was like went here, met this person, ate fish.
Oh my god! So it wouldn't have been interesting. Well, it probably would. Anyway.
When you scroll back over, you're like, oh yeah, like you know, there's so many mundane days in your life that just
the minutiae.
Yeah.
What about you, Johnny? Oh, would it even be Evernote?
Evernote was good. A deep work habit. If the book existed, 5-3-1, very similar, like a rep scheme. But I think for me, it would be just raising my standards because in my first degree, thought that I was like some big hotshot, like doing really well. But looking back, like it was a degree that, like, if you didn't get a first in it, you're a dick. So, and then the second one made me realize like how much slack there was in the system. And actually, what I could have done is done two degrees at the same time, like one independent one private one, university one, or like learned another language, read loads of books, like started up another business, like something that. So
yeah.
Johnny?
I think either it sort of incentivizing myself to like go down the path of seeking alternative education earlier. So I think like I stumbled into like
Instatrade at 18.
Well, yeah. I mean stuff like that. Like, you know, the stuff that you start into the self-development world and read books and listen to different people and get different views that are different from your friends and different from what your parents have taught you and different from school. And I think the earlier you get that, the better your life decisions are. But I don't know, I don't think it's not a life hack necessarily, but I think like just start learning from places that aren't uni.
Got you.
That would have been what I was told myself.
You got one, Johnny? Got a good one?
What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
Trouble?
Out of the big five.
Probably neuroticism or industriousness.
Scott said left overhead press. Neuroticism.
Snatch.
Neuroticism or... So this has caused the most problems for me is somewhere between neuroticism and industriousness. Just that I can't bear not to be working and doing things. Like, and it's getting... I'm controlling it better, but the industriousness is getting worse. I'm able to now operate with less rest.
Right.
Like less downtime. I'm able to do... Like previously it might be a 5-day week, but now I can probably get away with maybe a 7-day week before I need to take an afternoon. And then, you know, over time that'll become like a 10-day week before I need to take an afternoon. So the problem with that is that back in the day, my neuroticism caused me to shortcut success as the indicator for my success and just allowed, I was forced to use the suffering associated with the task as my indicator of I've done good. So if I worked a club night and went home and was fucked, I would think, yeah, you've worked hard. Irrelevant of, regardless of the success of the event. Whereas I could go and have a one where the event performed really well, but if I hadn't suffered, I was like, oh, you fucking lazy bastard.
So it has to be hard to feel like you're moving in the right direction,
even if it's not successful. And then if it's not, so you need to succeed on two different pathways, one of which is not associated with success at all. So that's kind of the one that's got me in the most trouble. It's also got me in the most trouble with friends, girlfriends, all that sort of stuff. Why are you working again this evening? Why are you doing this? It means that you don't have. It's a rare person who wants to work as much as we do, and it's fortunate that we are around each other. Like fucking Dean's the same, Jordan, George, a lot of people that we sort of come across. I wonder how much of the fact that we're friends is just us desperately not feeling quite as weird.
Feel normal.
Yeah. What about you, Seth?
It was a very good answer. Similar. For me, it's my overhead press. Like, it's always been slow to progress, and
Mine's still stuck where it's always been.
It's annoying. Agreeableness as well. I mean, it's the origin of the problem the perpetual problem.
Too agreeable.
I think so. But neuroticism as well. Like, out of the.
I think yours has got to be the Scobie problem.
Well, yeah, which comes about
architecture.
from agreeableness and.
Is it agreeableness? Is it not save money, not rock the boat?
So not rock the boat is agreeableness.
I suppose, yeah.
And then save money.
Neuroticism.
I'm less bothered about saving money these days.
Right.
You are getting better.
Not because I'm not.
If
because
you see
I have
value
money.
in stuff, you just buy it, don't you?
Yeah, I just like.
It's your threshold for seeing value.
But that is also both of your influence.
We pull you out with them.
Yeah.
What about you, Johnny? Because this is an interesting one for you.
Probably the biggest one for me is boundaries. And what I mean by that is I will... So similar to you, I suppose, like I would love to be able to shut my laptop at 4:00 and go train and forget about work for the rest of the day. But no matter how many times I tell myself to do that, I can't. So I need to force boundaries on myself. But that also leads to me being like, I'm late for stuff, or I'll procrastinate with things sometimes and do them right at the last minute. I was really bad at that at uni. Like I would do all my projects right at the last minute.
That's why, like, the developer of Frozen Turkey, like, it's got into our heads and knows that.
I think everyone does it. Like everyone procrastinates on something. It's just that I suppose, I hold myself to a really high standard with everything, which is stupid. And I don't allow myself any like leeway for just being a human being.
Yeah.
Something that I think you're very good at, and like I know Sam Evans talks about like rewiring your brain to like look for the most difficult thing of the day and just like hone in on it. Is, let's say you've got like 10 minutes before you have to go out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, oh, that's not quite long enough to do like a live video or whatever. Whereas you'll be like, I'll just do it.
That executor versus strategist thing's a big deal, like which I haven't completed. Right, I got.
Sorry, I'm really good with executing that, but like, put a load of washing in. I'll procrastinate on that.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, it's because there's no reward attached to it, right? Like if it's like,
It's creating
Johnny,
more work.
solve this really complex problem, fucking bring it on, and I'll sit and do it for 3 hours.
Johnny did the dishes.
But if it's like, Johnny, have you like unloaded the dishwasher?
Bollocks. Why don't we do a couple of quickfire ones, and then we got a really good meaty one. What are Johnny's most and least favourite CrossFit movements except squats and deadlifts?
Least favourite is running and burpees.
Okay.
So the way it's separated is if I have to move something while being stationary, really enjoy it. If I have to move myself, I don't enjoy it typically. So like pull-ups I find hard, toes to bar hard, burpees hard, running extremely hard. Running should just be removed from CrossFit entirely. If it's like rowing, echo bike, anything with a barbell, anything with a dumbbell, bring it on.
Having a laugh. What about dumbbell box step overs? Have you done those yet?
Box step overs.
Yeah.
No.
So 2 22.5s in either hand. Just step over the box. Don't need to step up at the top. Just get over it. It is the most glutey thing you've ever done in your life.
Devil
Side
press is
step.
pretty bad.
Double press is ugly. No, you can do it however. You can literally do it however. Most people go straight on and then twist and turn.
I think like actually thrusters I hate. Anything front rack.
Front rack.
Dumbbell
They're
press.
so lactate inducing, aren't they?
Another quick one. Fitness aims for 2020. RX the Open?
RX the Open, yeah.
That's a fucking great aim, you know. Like, just as something, I want to be able to get all of the fundamental movements, and I want to, place.
I heard. So you remember I went to see Anne Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
So he spoke about, like you have a flame inside you, which is like your like enthusiasm for things. And he's like, everybody gets to a point in their life where the flame starts to this is a really long-winded thing. Flame starts to flicker out and die. He's like, what you've got to do at that point is reignite the flame. And as he said that, Becca looked at me and went, that's what you're doing, isn't it? And I've never thought about it before, but like at that time, I'd just signed up. I'd just done 6 months of CrossFit, and I could feel the flame flickering with like fitness in general. Like nutrition, couldn't give a shit. Training, boring. Mobility, don't care. Whereas now, like, it switched, and suddenly, like, I love training again. And like, it doesn't matter that it.
What did you think if 2 years ago?
I told myself that. So I think I really want to do like a long content piece on this, because I think people. Two things that are annoying. One is I don't think CrossFit is what everyone wants it to be. I think it's a sport. I think it's a great way of expressing, like honing your fitness into something. But I think there are other attributes that you should be focusing on as well, and other ways of training that are sensible, that ideally feed into CrossFit. But also people who just relentlessly criticize things in the fitness industry, having never tried them. Like, we see it all the time. Like, keto is shit. Like, have you ever tried keto? Like, how long have you done keto for? Oh, you never tried. How convenient. Like, oh, paleo shite. How long have you done paleo for? Like, we have thrown ourselves, like, we lay on the train tracks and like, is the train going to kill me? I don't know. We'll find out. Like, because I just, people like lay into CrossFit, and we used to do it. And then I was like, well, we can't keep doing this. And because you tried like one class.
I've done two
classes.
Both vomit-inducing.
People in the gym still remember that, you know.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Tim Briggs still talks about it to this day.
Oh, no.
But that's perpetuated by the fact that you're always on the podcast.
Yeah.
Fitness aims for 2020.
3 flares on the floor. So flares it's when you're in trouble at sea and you have to. You will have seen people do it on the pommel horse, where legs are wide, moving, like that.
Yeah, advanced.
It's so hard.
Because you've got one. I've seen you do one.
I've just nailed 2 on the floor. Well, not
Is
nailed.
the third going to be really difficult to get?
Yeah, like I just fought, because what I'm doing with the 2 is like I'm basically like just coasting on the momentum from just winging myself round, but it's bad form. So
what do you have to do that? Like, how do you just do more? Because if you can only do 2 flares, right?
You need to be able to get
you can't train flares.
both legs like up, sort of alongside your face.
Sorry, what I mean is like,
And-
how do you train for that?
So I got a mushroom from eBay, which I've been doing, but it forces you into bad habits, because obviously
You're more lazy.
Yeah, because your legs can go below the floor. So actually, you learn it. You almost ingrain a wrong technique. You ingrain one that's good for pommel horse, but not for floor. So now I'm forcing on getting more lift and just like try. You do have to be able to get into like a really comfortable pancake, like active as well.
So abs, like,
abs, hip flexors, just being able to do that,
and then tricep shoulders as well.
Yeah,
This is why gymnasts are motherfuckers.
They're so impressive. I went to a handstand workshop with James Bailey and a guy called Yuval Avalon, who is a ex-Israeli Olympic gymnast and is now like a handstand. He's a monster, like just
Special forces.
He's like 50 years old, but he's in incredible shape. And someone asked him like, how do I do elephant lift? Which is, is like when your legs are wide on the floor and you put your hands on the floor and you lift into a handstand.
Yeah.
And he did it, like a beautiful one. And then he was like, it's not about strength. Look at this. And he did one, but on the floor. So he sat down, had his feet out in front of him, like 90 degrees, leaned forward, and then slid his feet all the way around. So he was just lying on his front, and then brought his feet back round again. So he's sat up again.
Yeah.
So he was like, my hips have just got the full...
fully gyroscopic hips.
Yeah, so he's like, well, if you can do that, then you're not actually lifting. You're just putting your hands on the floor and you're already flat.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just lift your legs up.
Got you. So mine, I just need to be able to train again, man. Like, I know it's...
So is that
Working.
like, that's what you're moving towards?
My fitness aim for the end of 2020 would be able to do RX all of the CrossFit movements at 40 kilos if there's weight on it, pain-free and without fear. So currently I'm not lifting. I don't do anything. Like, I just do my rehab, and it's a fucking destitute place to be as someone who's used to training. But these are the sacrifices that I need to make. And people like Brian Carroll split his fucking sacrum in half front to back and went back, and he's now going to try and squat 1,200 pounds at 275, which would be the first man on the planet that's ever done it. And I'm like, stop fucking complaining. Your problem is not as bad as you think it is. You're still able to do some things.
It's a good attitude.
Suck it up and crack on.
I'm consistently impressed with your boredom tolerance for the big three, or for doing any rehab movements. Like, you'll go into the gym and just do rehab, but that would drive me mental.
It's actually because I'm very selfish. It's because I want to train. I want to train so badly that I'm prepared to do something super boring to be able to train again. So it's just I'm almost surprised at myself for that long-termist mentality.
Or like the powerlifting world is probably the biggest example of people who, like Lane Norton dinged his back like 3 times, I think, right before meet. And there's videos of him, like, he just keeps saying brick by brick, brick by brick. So he like works up, he's like, does 300 for a double, back goes again. Is that right? Back to doing like bird dogs and he just, building up like goblet squats, but he just keeps going. He knew it for years.
Indomitable, man. Recommendations for the best wearable fitness tech. So you have gone back to wearing a Whoop band. You've gone back to wearing a Whoop band. Why?
Whoop.
Quick one. Why?
Mainly because when you're doing powerlifting, the only thing that's relevant for it really is HRV. So the strain's mainly a cardio measure, like your heart rate zones and other things. So it's just interest really. Plus the new Whoop band.
Have you ordered the new strap?
Yeah.
Is it arriving soon?
Yeah.
I'll be interested.
Well, no, so I've ordered the Whoop 3.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, because that's
so they sent me a thing saying if you just resubscribe, we'll send you a Whoop 3 for free. So I was like, well, I like free things.
Do you have any wearable fitness stuff? Oh, Withings.
The Withings.
Oh yeah, the Withings. So Chris kindly gave me a Withings watch, which is good. Just tracks. It's like first gen, so it just tracks heart rate.
It's so thin and
I know you
can't even see. It's almost like you've got it on.
I want to try an Oura ring. George said he would lend me his to see whether I'd like it and I might buy one. I use a Muse headband for meditation.
Just sold mine.
Which is what?
Just sold mine.
Did you? Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's very good for a certain style of meditation. They claim that the new gen accounts for more like heart-oriented meditation.
Yeah, the new one's got like heart-mind stuff.
Okay, so you can do different styles. It certainly does correlate. It's a wearable EEG that it correlates with the level of concentration that you have. And what was the other one? There's a HeartMath Institute device. I think you wear it around your chest.
Yeah.
That I'm interested in buying. It's $200. But I need
HeartMath, if you're listening, just send us one out. We'll do a review.
That'd be lovely. But I need to justify that to myself by using the Muse more consistently.
Yeah.
I think like even just Fitbit. I think there's no downside just having something.
What I need is something as comfortable as a Whoop, which gives me the same readout as a Whoop but has the time.
Yeah,
I just need to have the time on it. Because if I had something that had
it's displayless.
If I had something that had the time on, I wouldn't need to get my phone out to check the time.
And then you're looking for.
Yeah. So
you're thinking to get the new Whoop though?
I'm going to try the 3 because I did like the readout on that, and I've noticed that I'm not taking as much care about my sleep because I sleep with my phone out of the room, which means that I can't use Sleep Cycle, and also I can't track what sort of quality my sleep is through sleep ranges.
The biggest thing for me is just wearing it more like a watch position. So I was obsessed with, they recommend like wearing it up here.
Higher up, yeah.
Like I was obsessed with that and it was making it fit weird for me.
The new one with the new strap will be better. Very quick one. At what point do you draw the line when it comes to the trade-off between personal data and personalized / tracking services, e.g. wearable tech? I just think as soon as it takes up more than a couple of minutes of your day, just fuck it off. Like
I think what that question's asking, is like
privacy.
Yeah.
Oh,
like giving your stuff away, I think.
Oh shit! Yes, of course it is. Yeah. Sorry, Alfie. I'm fucking my head's up my ass. Yes, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck. However, 23andMe and Ancestry and stuff like that. Apparently, there's some people
dodgy shit about that.
There's some people that are getting convicted for crimes that they've committed because they're able to find the genetic profile through that, which is like that's scary shit. Right, we got a good one here, Mr. Sandshrew. I ask this already with my own answer, but interested to hear your threes living 20 plus years under the idea that we aren't admired for the depths of our perception. In reference to Chris's favourite writings, Alain de Botton on the high degree of loneliness and its inexorable part of being a sensitive, intelligent human. Do you feel the greater your investment and depth of progress in modern wisdom and correlating practice, the more compounded the sense of loneliness? For want of a better word, follow up, do you think ignorance really would be bliss?
Does he mean ignorance from obviously you don't know, But like, is it ignorance from the perspective of the root of self-improvement?
So the main question here is, do you feel the greater your investment and depth of progress in modern wisdom and correlating practice, the more compounded the sense of loneliness?
I suppose in the most basic sense, like there are fewer and fewer people who
Have
you feel
relatable experiences.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
I understand what you're asking. So the Alain de Botton video from the School of Life, which is Why We're Fated to Be Lonely, basically says that people who have subtle, contrary or alarming points of view are less likely to be accepted by society at large because of the mimetic nature of us as beings and the fact that we're tribal and we want to be accepted. Given the choice between honesty and acceptability, most of us will compromise our honesty in order to be accepted by people that we're around. And the long and short of that is that a lot of people compromise who they are so that they can be around people that aren't like them, but just so they're around people. And like, I did that for a very long time. The bottom line is, and it's the thing that we continue to come back to with everybody that I speak to, absolutely everyone, from Andrew Doyle, the guy that created Titania McGrath, Sam Harris wrote an entire book on it, Jordan Peterson, it's one of his number one rules, tell the truth. And if you're telling the truth, you can't, you have to follow whatever that particular calling is. You have to do the thing which calls to you. And for me personally, the more tools that I've got in my toolbox, the better I've been at actually being effective, because my sense of solitude, not loneliness, the time that I spend on my own, I love. Like, there are fewer and fewer people that I can really, really genuinely connect with about everything that I do, but there are more people that I can connect with about some things that I do.
Yeah.
There's more arms to what I can talk about. I can now go talk about back health. I can genuinely have an hours long conversation about back health. I couldn't have done that before I started learning things.
I think it's the same as like a business serving a niche, right? Like if you try and serve everyone, you end up serving no one. I think the people you end up meeting as a result of just going down the route of modern wisdom and the conversations you end up having. Like if you put us three in a bar for an evening, you're like, you've got to sit in the bar and just talk about whatever you want. Like how much of that time would we spend talking about like surface level, pointless conversation? Like it would all be
Good
like
shit.
some really deep, like the other people were walking like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, but you end up talking about like the finest details of something that we're all really interested in that other people may think is weird, but we're all having the best conversation ever because it's something we're all interested in. So you either have like, talk about like match of the day or something that you really, really are deeply passionate about.
What about you, Seth? What do you think?
It's something you have to make a choice about, whether you are just hanging around with people for the sake of being with people, and if you're compromising on who you are for that, I think you need to really ask yourself the question of maybe it's better to actually withdraw and pursue what you love and think about, embed yourself in the thoughts and pursuits that you enjoy, and then you will find people that resonate. Like we're in an age where you can find people like that so easily now. If you are someone that is feeling lonely and that's something you're aware of, I think personally, I've not felt loneliness for a long time because I think my life is very much the opposite. Like I'm just getting pounded wherever I go. Like turn up at work and you just like your phone is just going mental and you're always in demand, and then you come home and you know your messages and your phone and everything's like. So I think for me, I also very much value just alone time because it's like,
There's a difference. So I love Cal Newport's definition of solitude, which is time away from the input of other people's thoughts.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between being on your own and solitude, because you can have all of these things with and without loneliness, but most people don't actually have solitude. They have their phone with them while they're on their own, or they're on their own but with the TV on or with the radio on or whatever it is. That's not necessarily solitude. Solitude would be you with no other stimulus other than you on output, journaling or
and
writing.
if you're always trying to escape that loneliness by like having something on in the background or whatever, then I suppose that's where you got to ask yourself the question of do I need to sit and think about, hang on, what am I not engaging with or what should I be engaging with mentally that
I'm avoiding.
The follow-up of Would Ignorance Be Bliss, Jordan Peterson said this at his live show. Long story short, he says that the thing which poisons you need to take enough of for it to be a toxic, to turn a toxin into a tonic. And he says that the progression through these particular issues is not a regression. It's more. It's take more of what it is that you think that poisons you until it becomes a tonic that fixes you. So anyone who knows the allegory of the cave, Plato's allegory of the cave, it's that exact story. So just go listen to Plato's allegory of the cave, then you'll understand exactly what I mean. But I don't think ignorance is bliss. Like, some people coast through life, but it is both a blessing and a curse to feel everything so very deeply. Like, and what? Like, fuck me, I would much sooner be able to appreciate the beauty of everything with real fidelity and then have to suffer a little bit, because you don't really live your life on the couch just chilled out fucking within the tightest interquartile range of human experience. Like, I'd much sooner die and have highs and lows than have just constantly lived in a bit of comfort.
I think the biggest example of this for me was leaving corporate life, like leaving 9-to-5 life and being entrepreneur,
thrown into the fucking ether.
Yeah, because it's quite a lonely experience at times, especially if like you're sat by yourself and something bad happens on your computer screen, and it like sends you into this emotional, and like you're just there on your own. You've just got to sit with that experience. Whereas like as an employee, the analogy I always say is like, as an entrepreneur, you're like in a dinghy on the top of the sea while there's a storm happening. If you're an employee, you're like on the riverbed and someone goes, do you know there's a storm up there? Fucking hell. Sorry, someone's on it. Someone's sorting it. Whereas you're like trying to like fix a hole in the boat.
Yeah.
On the phone,
it's a really fucking great analogy.
Yeah. So like, and then you're like, well, you have moments where you're like, it would be easier to just... So that when I think ignorance is bliss, for me, the thing I think of is, well, you could just go sit in an office and like chat to people about like Love Island and... that's obviously I'm generalising, but like versus sat by yourself looking at a computer screen, fucking terrified
with
about
a spoon trying to
trying to block your tap.
Life isn't lived from the comfort of your couch, man. I got one. Yeah,
very, very keen to hear, Mr. Sandshrew, if you have any examples, normal or very silly, where ignorance would be bliss. Because I think it's a great thought experiment. Like, are there any situations where
date of death? Date and method of death.
So you reckon that would be... You'd prefer not to know? I can't think of a situation now. I'm sure there would be where...
Fire it in the comments below. We want to hear.
Let us know.
We'll talk about it.
I got one more before we'll go back onto yours. This is from Andrew Tate. He is very interesting internet personality and a good online mate of mine. Can I ask if True Geordie regrets doing a hit piece on me? Now everyone knows he loves dildos.
Oh dear.
What's the background of that?
So True Geordie's Instagram DMs have been leaked, in which he talks at length about liking to be humiliated, about sucking the dick of a black man after it's been inside of this girl that he's talking to, about this girl humiliating him and putting dildos inside of his arse, about him then sucking the dildos after they've been inside of his own arse.
Who leaked it?
It was all over Twitter, man. Because you're not on Twitter, but it is everywhere at the moment. And he called out Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate did this ridiculously big tweet about why he doesn't like Star Wars. And it went like hyper viral. And Andrew and Lawrence went at him fairly hard.
Right.
And Andrew's recently done a video where he's just like,
just got to be careful. Just be careful on the internet.
Exactly what he said. He's like, man, if you've got shit like this lurking around, don't come after someone like me. I don't think it's him that leaked it, but
I think the bigger lesson from that is like, people think that when they type something in iMessage or WhatsApp or Instagram DM, that like it's in this little private world that no one's gonna
fucking screenshot away from being public. Yeah, exactly. What you got? Give us another one. Let's do some quickfire ones. Let's move through some. Let's get through some of this fucking body.
If you could have chosen your own name, what would you have picked? Abdul Basid Barmore. Do you believe in mediums?
No. Come on.
I don't know. I'm quite happy with Yusef. It's a very common name in the Arab world, but here it's...
I was going to be Jonathan.
Weird.
Really?
Yeah. I was going to be Jonathan. And then
Would you wanted that?
I don't mind. Jonathan's a cool name. There's one of the problems that I have with Jonathan is the number of different ways that there are to spell it. Jonathan, Jonathon, John, and
John, Johnny, John.
Yeah.
How do you
John,
feel
Johnny,
about
Johnny, John.
the sort of the Christian connotation of Christopher?
Not bothered.
Not bothered.
Not bothered.
Jonathan's biblical as well, isn't it?
To be honest, I don't know. I like Johnny. I don't like Jonathan, but it's a link to like Jonathan.
I like the fact that I've got two versions of my name, Chris and Christopher.
So do you get? I suppose you don't have a short version of your name, do you?
Seth.
So an example.
Official one.
Like, let's say you are like someone has got to know you a bit, and they call you Chris rather than Christopher. Do you have a thing of like
No.
So I do with Johnny, definitely. Like if someone calls me Johnny, it's like they know me.
You're supposed to Jonathan.
Yeah.
Because they'll only seen you on the internet.
Yeah. Whereas if I get Jonathan, it's normally in a formal scenario, but Johnny is friends.
Got you.
So if someone in a position of authority calls me Johnny, you're like, I'm trying to think of an example.
It's just a good little canary in the coal mine about where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, do the coaches in class call you Jonathan, but when they're out of class call you
they call
Johnny?
me Johnny.
That's good.
They call me Johnny.
What was that? Do we believe in mediums?
Yeah. Where's it gone? Do you believe in mediums? Do you think there is some actual science behind their practices?
No.
Darren Brown. Go watch loads of Darren Brown. We went to Iceland and all we did was just watch loads of Darren Brown. I love Darren Brown.
Because there was a blizzard. Are you going to grow...
It was a fucking blizzard.
It was a blizzard. Are you going to grow your hair again? No. The best type of male underwear, grenade wear or smuggling duds? What is the funniest thing you have ever seen a stranger do? Fuck me.
Oh.
Wow.
I reckon you'll have seen... there was one that you said the other day.
Excuse me, I'm not being funny, right?
Oh, God.
The brain problem? That's fairly funny.
Yeah.
We've had so many things happen at events we've been to where at the time the event isn't that funny, but retrospectively you're like,
fucking
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I can't, none that would like translate
Right,
on
here
this.
we go. It's not
I
straight.
do believe in mediums, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
But not anyone that advertises themselves to be one isn't one. I think if you're at the point where you're starting to like see glimmers of things that are outside of you, human reality, you'll be deep in a cave somewhere, not really caring about trying to prove it to anyone.
So by the time you're a medium, for anyone listening, if you're a medium, you'll know, and
You're going to be so off the deep end that
you're right. I am on
Speaking of spirits, do you know what I mean?
You're like rubbing your face on the ground in the weeds, like
what do you have to gain from like being like, oh mate, I can?
Because you can chat to dead people.
Yeah,
But
if you can charge per hour.
That is a very good point. If you're a medium and you have access to the entire history of all dead people, what the fuck are you speaking to Sharon's mum for?
God,
that's so true.
Fuck it, because
Nikola Tesla's out there, and you're chatting.
When you put it like that, it is completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous, especially when
Bruce Lee.
All the people are like, well, Sharon, she's here. There's a calling. And like,
There's someone with an H in their name. Is it Harold or Harry or
Harry, Hermione?
And
It's Hermione. I thought it was.
Yeah, they all scouts.
It's just the guy on Darren Brown who gets absolutely hung, drawn, and quartered by.
He got done.
Yeah.
Funniest thing you've ever seen a stranger do. It wasn't a stranger, but drove Darren home after the staff Christmas party a couple of years ago. And I saw him throw up on the ground on Jesmond Back Road, and then as he came up from throwing up, he threw up again standing upright, and the force of him throwing up laterally pushed him backwards and he fell over in mud.
Oh God.
That was fucking, at the time, side-splittingly hilarious.
Something that, so related to that, this is just something that occurred to me that was funny at the time. I was 18, I was in basement in Newcastle, everyone was drinking Skittles and trebles, and we had this thing where it was called a TP, or a tactical puke. Probably heard of that.
Tactical chundo.
So you just keep going. So we're out in the alleyway and the three of us are making ourselves be successful. So everyone's like, fingers down the throat, and there's like, and then like one person goes, and that encourages number two to be sick and number three to be sick. And there was a guy walking down the alley at the time who, sober, not on a night out, saw us being sick and consequently was sick. Just like saw it and just the smell, and I just saw him go.
Sympathy bomb.
Brilliant.
That is incredible.
Brilliant.
Wow.
I feel like I've always been the person doing the weird thing rather than.
Yeah, you do some fucking funny things.
But I love the idea of the sympathy bomb because it's like he can't then blame you.
I know. Well, it's just, when you're out, when you
Sorry.
see someone be sick and it's the smell of it and it smells like parmesan, be like, oh. And
It's
then,
right,
him
in the
being
back of your throat where you smell
Yeah.
it, isn't it? It's like up there.
And then him being sick makes you want to be sick again, and they're using this self-fulfilling. Everyone's just fucking throwing up for hours. But that was very funny.
Johnny, what we got? Let's keep on moving through these.
Oh God, no, not that. Someone wants to hear. Matt Hoy wants to hear your nocturnal emission story.
Oh, it's in Vipassana 10-day retreat.
Yeah, God,
podcast.
Long story short, Yusef was on a silent meditation retreat. Wasn't allowed to think about sex, or you weren't allowed to masturbate.
Didn't you have a day on the retreat where just all you thought about was sex?
Yeah.
Was that the day?
I think it was the day after, yeah. So Daniel Ingram says that, because I thought, because I remember David describing this, and like day 1 is sadness, day 2 is fear, day 3, and
Day 3's porn.
and I said this to Daniel Ingram, who's like the guy who's like completed meditation, and he was like, yeah, that's what happens. He's like, that's the anatomy of the mind. Like everyone has that exact
Porn
sequence
day.
of emotions that go through on each of the 10 days.
I don't think I've ever had a wet dream, and you had
No, I
one
haven't.
on a meditation retreat.
You have them.
and then
You have them constantly.
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah, you've never had that.
I've never had them either.
It's if you just
if you've had a wet dream,
inactive.
comment below.
yeah.
I of my friends that I've had this conversation with, I think it's 50-50 split.
Really?
Yeah, quite a lot of people
Fucking
have.
what's going on?
I know.
Do you mean to come? I've come in my pants.
Yeah, I've done a cum.
I did a cum in my pants,
So you woke up in a bunk bed after having done a cum.
and then drop kicked a man with cum in your
A
pants.
French man who couldn't speak to him.
You couldn't even apologise.
Oh yeah, because you're not allowed to.
But you just the thing
I just kept laughing.
The thing
when
I
saw
love
it.
about that is that because the whole idea of not making eye contact is that you don't fuck with anyone's chi, isn't it? Like you don't
You've,
fuck with
you've
them.
drop kicked a man with cum in your
And
pants.
for the rest of the week, whenever you walk past him, you burst out laughing. Like if there's a way to fuck with someone's
But the
headspace.
problem is, it was like a mad laugh. I just couldn't, I couldn't contain myself. And so he was I was like mocking him relentlessly.
Well, exactly.
like,
So he's
being
going to
really-
go sit and meditate for 10 hours that day, and all he can think about is that weird bloke who looks like that pirate from the
Fucking
Peter
Captain
Pan
Man
film.
who looked like Captain Hook. Yes,
Yeah.
is him.
The guy with Smee who keeps stopping me from getting into Neverland. He drop kicked me,
Fucking me up.
with cum running down his leg.
Right.
If using creatine, should I use it on non-training days?
Yes.
Just propanefitness.com/creatine.
Yep.
How's the Propane Fitness space program progressing?
Space program.
That's a question.
Did we
Casper
mention that?
Sorensen.
Casper?
It's because in one of your slides there's a photo of a spaceman tumbling. Doing this as tumbling.
Jesus
Okay.
Christ, that is such a
Attention to detail.
high fidelity attention. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Why are
Uh,
Johnny's legs so long?
Why are Johnny's legs so long? Obs from
Classic.
because powerlifting.
Classic.
Why?
Who's
are
that?
Because powerlifting.
Tom Wilkes.
Oh right.
Tom Wilkes Booth.
Yeah.
The guy with who's even made his last name powerlifting related. It's not the Wilkes formula anymore, it's the IPF formula.
Okay.
Oh.
Who is the coolest person who listens to Modern Wisdom? My mum. My mum listens to Modern Wisdom.
Your mum likes all our shit on Facebook as well.
She's fucking great,
Yeah.
man. Honestly,
Super
biggest
fan.
fan. Coolest person that you know that listens to Modern Wisdom? Any cool people that you know that have said, oh, I listen to that?
I don't know. There's a lot of people who I'm meeting in the CrossFit gym who listen to Modern Wisdom who love it.
Yeah, man.
I mean, are they all cool? I suppose they are.
Some of them are fucking fit. If you were to pick a favourite Modern Wisdom episode from the last 100 that we've done, what would it be? Any that stand out? How to Survive University continues to come back as a fucking belter because I just
Very
wish
good.
I'd had it.
I enjoyed Business 101. I enjoyed the first business one. Just because I think those stories are always at the time, not funny at all. When things go wrong, not funny at all, but afterwards hilarious.
It's true. Life Hacks 107 was very good as well, I remember.
What
but
happened in that one?
I
Did you
just
talk
remember
about
being-
some life hacks?
we
It was Life Hacks 107 was where we really went off. I think it's like an hour and 40. It was like a real proper motherfucker one.
We're done with our questions. Unless, hold on. Oh, God. Christ.
Oh, the second one.
Yeah. How to start improving the value of your inner circle and stepping away from negative/passive people. Be friends with people that want the best for you. Jordan Peterson all over again. Just
in terms of how you do that, someone asked us a question the other day about like how do you improve your network, and I just said, for me, it's always been the gym. I think where I've like met the most interesting people. Like if you want to meet interesting people, go to interesting places. I'm not saying the gym's an interesting place, but like you can say for fairly sure, as long as you're not going to like a class and exercise for less or whatever. Like if you go to something that like you're interested in fitness, you'll probably find someone who's interested in the same thing. They're probably also interested in other self-development things. And
so I think that you'll find those people, if you go to the hangout of the interest for that thing, and you're more likely to find higher quality people within that if you join something that's behind a paywall. So if you join a mentorship or a gym or something that's exclusive, but it's for people that, because they've all put their money where their mouth is, and they've all like decided to enter into a network or something to really take things faster.
George McGill, when does Johnny plan on using Snapchat ads?
Did you really ask that? Jesus Christ. I'm not answering that question.
There you go. Sorry, George.
No, it's a good suggestion, George. I'm looking into it.
Social Commando, what are your thoughts on Insta removing the follower and like numbers?
Fine.
I don't like the idea of follower because I think that it is an indicator of credibility.
Do you think they're going to do that?
They're trying the removal of likes. I think there's no like counter in Australia. They can't remove comments, surely, because then you can't comment.
As in, you can't see the number of comments.
Okay, you can count them manually.
You can't see you can't see the engagement basically on posts on Instagram.
That's interesting.
I wonder why they're doing that.
In influencer stuff and younger people being obsessed with it.
So they're having to like.
Yeah, it's an interesting experiment. Like I think it's affected a lot of influencers negatively, but.
Well, that's their credibility, right? Their credibility
is
the
currency, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yusef made a big career U-turn. How did he make that big decision and implement it?
I think we discussed this in Business Principles 102. Definitely worth listening back to.
Yep. You just said, fuck it, I'm sick.
It was pain avoidance rather than some kind of noble motivation to,
You're all successful professionals. These are from Tricky Ricky.
Professionals.
So, you are all sexual professionals and within fitness, nutrition, meal prep, and within, nutrition, meal prep, hacks and tips. Slow cooker.
Hold on, what's the question?
I'm not sure about the first bit. Just nutrition / meal prep hacks and tips.
Just drop it, Johnny, drop it.
Slow cooker.
Yeah.
For me, removing gluten, removing like big sources of gluten and dairy has helped. Like
I can't believe you just said that, Chris.
You used to eat a lot of pasta, didn't you?
I've just switched it to different starch carbs.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you go like Violet Beauregard in Willy Wonka?
No, just a little
and
bit
you have
discomfort.
it Oompa Loompas after roll you down the thing. Did that not happen to you? That's what happened when I like gluten. And then I remember that actually I'm not celiac and it's fine. You listen to me.
We all occasionally have epically fail / down days / get pissed off. How do you deal with them?
Change your state.
Change your temperature.
So move. So here's an interesting thing. We wanted to chat to you about this. Ages ago, you said, I get the same 0-1 mentality shift from training. And me and Yusef were like, but
Chris,
with CrossFit, you definitely do. And I think it's because there is a definite, you finish the session, you're like, and you're immediately in a better mood and you're immediately forgotten what you were worrying about before.
Yeah.
So that's what made me go back to like, just get up, like go for a run, move, do something, change your temperature, cold shower, hot shower, coffee, listen to Beartooth's album.
Yeah. The commonality there is get out of your head and into your body.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah. I said the quote is, I get a better mindset reset from training than I do from a night's sleep.
Yeah.
And that's true. I wonder whether this has actually been made worse by my meditation practice. The fact that my emotions are a little bit more transparent to me now, and I'm concentration, clarity, and equanimity. I'm trying to hold them with more of that, which actually means that they're more visceral and they're more at the forefront of everything. But yeah, just go train. I have like real depressive episodes, which I haven't had. Thankfully, I haven't had really that much recently. So when it's those ones, there's not really much of a solution. Like when it's a proper can't get out of bed day, try and get out of bed, try and go for a little walk. I did a tweet not long ago that said, almost all of the problems in my life can be fixed by a 10-minute walk, a good night's sleep, a glass of water, or a wank.
Ideally all at once. Actually, a guy to follow for that sort of stuff is Paul Mort. Was diagnosed with bipolar, Yusef?
Yeah.
Paul Mort. Had like professional help, but now like self-manages, and he has a lot of stuff about state change, and I think his quote is like, where attention goes, energy flows. So he does a lot of stuff about like focusing on, you feel that way, so it's like, right, what's a win I've had today? Like, right, I'm just going to focus on that. I'm just going to put all my energy into this thing. Or, you know, he like goes and gets in his car and plays music really loud and goes for a drive.
Yeah.
You can immediately think like, oh, actually,
that
probably
might be nice. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest factor in sticking to your goals and avoiding getting distracted? That's from Jake. You need to know what your goals are. Like, I'm terrible. I've never done proper, genuine long-term planning for goals ever.
I just think you can.
But I've never done it. I've never even done any sort of moderately formalized process. Like the closest that I've come is future authoring from Jordan Peterson, and I did half of the course. So sticking to your goals requires you to have goals. And unless you go through a process of working out what it is that you want and then deciding how you even begin to move towards that, you just, like 90% of people will say, I haven't achieved my goals. And you say, okay, what are your goals? And they won't have an answer.
So this is the quote that Chris often quotes, which is, he who has the right why can bear almost any how, from Nietzsche. And like, yeah, if you know what the high level thing that you're aiming for is, then putting those jigsaw pieces into place becomes much more effortless because it's all with a greater purpose in mind. Whereas if you wake up and you're just falling into
the thing that made me feel like a prick was the quote from James Clear, where he's like, someone rephrased it where it's like, everyone on the start line of the 100 meters Olympics has the goal to win the 100 meters, but one of them wins, and the difference is not the goal, the difference is the process. And you're just like, you spend all this time like setting these goals in your life, and you're like, actually, like Bill Gates has got a goal, like probably similar business goals, like grow his business, but he really achieves it.
Nat Eliason has a great rebuttal to that systems without goals are pointless.
Systems without goals. So the system has to be attached to something. I agree with that. Yeah,
it's really good, really nice compliment to that. The ever accepting nature of the CrossFit community, where does it come from? Or is the CrossFit member base the most affluent fitness consumers on earth?
It's probably a bit of that.
So CrossFit's quite an elitist, like especially in the UK, it's pretty privileged, like very white, very middle class, at least in our gym. And we're in the thick of Newcastle.
Centre of Newcastle, isn't it? Essentially, yeah.
Hardly like Toffsville.
It's under Dallas carpet.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah, it's that is a good point. I think one of the other things is that CrossFit's branded itself as, it looks cool. Like if you dress like a powerlifter outside of the gym, people walk on the other side of the street to you. If you dress like a CrossFitter outside of the gym, you look like someone that does fitness. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a commercially acceptable face of powerlifting, strength sports, endurance. Like, you don't have to wear tights, you don't have to wear a wetsuit, you don't have to wear like weird heavy metal t-shirts and like a beard, and
it's very
be a Spurgic.
It's just a little like just a little grenade.
Chris Williamson, like, yeah, it's surgical.
I've certainly felt extremely welcomed, and I didn't expect that. I thought I'd get like, who's this guy who, big 300 kilo deadlift, like, well, let's show him.
Yeah.
But it's been the opposite of that. It's been, like coaches like taking extra time to explain something like, I can't do a toaster bar. Like, how bad is that? But explaining it to me. But I think for me, it's the branding, probably. Like, they make it look aspirational. You don't watch You don't even watch Olympic lifting on TV. It's probably like Olympic lifting and strongman. Not many people sit and watch like Brian Shaw at Christmas and think, fuck me, I want to look like Brian Shaw. Like, or like, oh, Brian Shaw's like, they look at it and go like, oh God, like, imagine he's going to have a bad back. Whereas you watch like the CrossFit documentaries and you think, like, Rich Froning just looks badass. Like, he can do all this stuff. He looks good. Healthy.
Yeah. Good, like, rounded family life.
Yeah.
Like, you hear the stories about Eddie Hall. Like, where he was at.
He's shredded now.
When he was, he's getting proper shreddy. But when he was at the peak of his career, he was like, he was pretty adamant. Within another 6 months, his marriage would have been fucked.
He had, like, multiple heart attacks as well.
He was fucked.
Yeah.
Fully fucked.
Strong bastard.
Have you seen that you've got some new ones on the second story?
Yeah. What would be your ultimate life hack? Which you've already kind of covered, haven't you?
Swipe up. Yeah.
Should trans athletes be allowed to compete as the gender they identify as?
So I really like Joe Rogan's perspective on this.
I don't know what that is.
Which is that with combat sports particularly, we need to be very careful about is it progressive to allow someone who has been physiologically a man for 30 years and transitioned very recently to beat up a woman when there is an unfair combat advantage in terms of reflexes, total muscle mass. Like,
so that's hinged on this idea that it's someone's biological capabilities are influenced by the gender they were at birth, right? Or like the sex they were. I don't know. I'll be saying it wrong, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like the you know, if you take gender out of it and you say you have two humans competing in a combat sport, one of them's had 30 years of testosterone and then stopped the testosterone, and that's influenced their physiology in such a way that they have an unfair advantage. Is that fair from a sporting perspective? And I think you got to really separate the sociocultural issues of gender and gender politics from just the pure sporting judgment.
Or just hormones.
Yeah.
Like, hormones are one of the most important things in competitive sport.
That's why they're all banned.
WADA, fucking hell, like, there's like Dick Pound, which is the head of WADA, or like maybe he was.
Yeah.
Like, Dick Pound is sat there and all he is thinking about is
hormones.
What are we allowing people to have in their bodies and not have in their bodies? And then you take, as you say, like someone who's had 30 years of high levels of testosterone, and then they decide to compete with women.
So you've got two things running up against each other, which is one, someone's right to express the gender identity that they feel they should express in a sport that they love, and the other is
sporting fairness.
Yeah,
because it doesn't. Yeah, safety, even before all of the safety things, it's like 100-meter sprint. I think it might be golf or tennis. It's in tennis. Like, the 1,000th man in the world would beat Serena Williams, apparently.
Right.
And you're like...
But they play, like, I don't know whether this is the same thing, but they play, like, a different volume of tennis, don't they? Male and female tennis players.
It's a totally different tactic, I think.
But even if you just look at the raw data, so, like, look at the 100-meter times of the men and the women. Let's say you allow one of those men to assign themselves as a woman and compete in the female Olympics. Is that fair on the female athletes who were competing last year?
Well, there was a weightlifter, wasn't there, that transitioned.
Laurel Hubbard.
Was it that, like, clean and jerked 130 in the, like, top weight category, which for a man is a crap clean and jerk.
Higher than normal testosterone levels, or was that thing? Or was that something else?
I thought it was someone who a
person called Laurel Hubbard was one of the big weightlifting things. So I had a fairly lengthy discussion with Zuby about this. He was a guy who tweeted saying, people say there's no biological difference between men and women. Watch me smash the world women's deadlift record. PSI identified as a woman, so while doing this, don't be a bigot. And he pulled 230 sumo, and that is 40 kilos under his max, but 10 kilos over the woman's in that weight category, in the correct weight category. The question that I haven't actually got around to speaking about, I spoke to Andrew Doyle about this as well, is the other side of the debate, which is, what do you do as a trans athlete? Like, if you're a man who's transitioned to be a woman and you're a boxer and you want to box, who the fuck do you box?
So I remember Ben Torme was talking about this with someone, saying that, like, we just maybe need to use a different definition of male female, like I don't know whether it's basing it on chromosomes or basing it on something that's not the way that we currently define it.
The problem is
Because
there's a lack of clarity between what male as XXXY definition with tied in with hormone profile and gender expression or gender identity is, and then you're trying to fit these square pegs into round holes that work for sport.
Yeah.
And this is where the difficulty lies. And 50% of the difficulty of when people are having these discussions is that people play linguistic tricks. And they go, right, well, you've said woman. Do you not mean woman? Or and you're like, oh, mate.
People just want to get offended by it, don't they?
Give over. I want to have a discussion about
It's a difficult thing to navigate. Like, you try talking about it. It's a difficult thing to say the right things and express it in the right way.
It's even more difficult when people want to get offended, though. They're just waiting for you to slip up, you fucking bigot, you fucking transphobe.
Especially when they have an opinion. And if you express an opinion that isn't their opinion, you're immediately unfair. And
no, mate, I just think it's something different to you. So yeah, that's definitely one of the things. But yeah, the question of like, do you then, obviously it would be fairly prejudiced to segregate trans across and say, right, okay, here's a male to female and a female to male category that you can only go in. I mean, that's going to be so whittled down that it's going to be a terrible sport to watch or be involved in, because you're never going to find someone who's of a similar capacity to you. But it's fraught to try and continue to fit these things into the existing setups.
Because there has to be parameters for sport. Like, it isn't sport if it's just anyone can do whatever the fuck they want. Because then it's unfair.
I know I weighed into the 105s at 120, but I identify as 105.
Yeah, like, can I identify as a 74? That would help me immensely. I'd win.
Everything.
So it's like, there is a parameter that is set in stone because it's a number on a scale. And Wilks and, the 100-meter time, all these things are data points that cannot be argued with. But because this is still a parameter which affects the fairness of the game that is being played. But because there's an emotional aspect to it, it gets very tense very quickly.
Well, it's the Ben Shapiro question, right? Why aren't you 60?
Yeah.
Why aren't you 60?
It's because I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Jordan Peterson who's like, are you a tree? No. Why not? Because you're not a tree. Okay. Okay. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah. The
terrible impression. But
the Shapiro one where he's like, are you 60? Why aren't you 60? And the girl says, well, because there's a bit of a difference between what I am now and being 60. And he says, yes, there is. But there is a much bigger difference between you being a woman and you being a man. And the problem with this is that because of how militant some active voices have been on the left on this issue, what you will do is you will like just put in, like in volleyball, it's like that little setup before the spike.
Yep.
And then someone like some motherfucker like Peterson or Harris or Shapiro is going to come in and they're going to eviscerate someone and make them look silly. And then what's going to happen is they're going to be accused of being insensitive, which perhaps they've
delivered it in an insensitive way.
Yes. And then it's like, and they go back, and then it creates this game of tennis.
Well, yeah, like, and I think like this is why I think like I mean I'm a clinician, I'm a scientist. I'm not interested in the gender politics. And it's like, okay, so if it's a real question, someone's actually interested in how do we judge sport, then it's like, right, what is the fundamental premise that we are saying here? We're saying we have two divisions, men and women. First of all, should we have two divisions split up like that? That's the first question. The next one is there a objective difference between men and women? Is there a biological difference? And that point alone is still being debated. Like, there's still people that believe that there is no biological difference between men and women. And then
it's just the way that they're socialized as children.
So then you're like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine to believe if you want to believe that on your own. But then do you have any problem taking testosterone for 30 years? Or do you have any problem like competing in a...
Well, if you ask those people like, okay, well, should we allow drugs in sports? Like, is Lance Armstrong, what he was doing, is that okay?
Well, it's fine because it wouldn't make a difference having testosterone or not, because it doesn't, there's no... So I think because the fundamental premise isn't really clearly fleshed out, then it means you can't move any further forward, because
it's like that quote of like, calories in, calories out is like gravity. And if you're saying you don't believe in gravity, then I have no interest in like getting in your plane. or whatever. I've butchered it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there are fundamental things that have to be like, all right, fine, gravity exists. Now let's talk about flight.
Even with all of those things, right? And I said this to Andrew Doyle and to Zuby. I was like, this whole trans athletes in sports thing is a fucking very highly charged minefield, and I'm incredibly glad that I don't need to try and litigate it. Like, can you imagine if you're the man who has to work out whether or not transitioning athletes should be
Dick Pound. He'll be up there. He'll be on the board as part of deciding.
Pounding.
Yeah, difficult job.
Dick Pound.
A kind of adjacent question to this: toxic masculinity in quotation marks. This is from Luke. Toxic masculinity. Who's to blame more for its creation, men or women?
So what is toxic masculinity?
Doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm clear on it either.
But toxic masculinity is the over-expression of typically masculine traits to a tyrannical or oppressive level, I suppose.
Okay, so mansplaining, manspreading.
Everything with man in it. Manchester.
Manual.
Yeah. Stephen Manuel. As far as
I'd like to know his opinion on this.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's just people naming things. It's just people naming character traits. You have people that are girly guys and masculine guys. Toxic masculinity to me is just the same as toxic femininity. Like,
do you think, like, you know, the generations prior to us, like, you know, the generation that dealt with like World War II? I just think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I imagine if you presented them the sort of things that are being argued about now, they'd just be upset.
There's a clip of George from on Mental Models 102 saying something like that, of like something about being on the front line in World War II, and then they're like, oh, my Instagram doesn't get any likes.
So,
like, I can't do that because I don't identify as a soldier.
On the other side of that question, it's no use to any of us to judge the life that we have now with the lens that we would have used 100 years ago. Like, I'm not saying, I don't know why I'm fucking bothered about getting cancer. At least I didn't die of the bubonic plague. Like,
yeah,
hang on. I need to refine the fidelity of my view for what criteria I need my life and the life of those around me to be at as time progresses and as life gets better. Like, yes, we are no longer at a world war. Therefore, I can start to look at things like what our attention device is doing to my brain.
As long as it's not, I feel like some of these things feel very much like they're making a problem. They're like, toxic masculinity.
Searching for a problem.
Like, yeah, like, so being in a landing craft, about to arrive on like Normandy beaches, that is, for no one would argue that is a problem you're about to experience.
It's a serious problem.
Like, but you know, in the same way, cancer is a problem. Like, you can't argue that because cancer isn't the bubonic plague that it's not as bad. You know, it's still a problem to deal with. Mm-hmm. But like, if you are, everything in your life is all right, but you decide that actually toxic masculinity really offends you, it's like, well, does it have to, or are you choosing for it to be the case? Like,
if people lie to themselves so effectively, I think a lot of people would struggle to answer that. I think and especially if you then add in availability bias and echo chambers and
if all your mates agree with you,
then you can create yourself to believe anything that you want, right?
I suppose we all have to have something to focus on and think about. So
why not make it toxic masculinity?
Why not? Eh?
Why don't we all
just get really upset about it?
About toxic masculinity, and then there's a militia which we can join, and they are humble and grateful and they're independent.
They must be stopped.
There's 2 points here from my housemate who's upstairs. Number one, best way to go about getting on the property ladder or investing in property. I think this will be useful to a lot of people and me. Let's try and do a really quick version of this. Build up 35 grand. Purchase a property which has at least 2 bedrooms, ideally 3 if you can. Let the other 2. That's it.
I'd invest in REITs.
What's that?
Real Estate Investment Trust.
Are they available in the UK?
Yeah, so it's an investment vehicle that basically allows you to get some of the gain. You probably know better than I do. Allows you to get some of the gain of property without actually owning property.
Yeah, it's like a aggregate of a property portfolio that you get to buy in, like a certain amount into, and because you don't then need discrete sums of 35 grand per deposit per thing, you can get exposure to the return of the properties that the REIT is investing in without having to go all in.
Like a JV.
We should say,
Yeah.
this isn't financial advice.
This is not financial advice.
Yeah, this is just saying there is a
This
vehicle.
is what we are aware of. What we might do, maybe.
Part 2, Seth's advice to zero jealousy. Seth. He's called you Seth, but I've changed it because he means Seth. Seth's advice to
zero jealousy.
I'm going to start calling you Seth.
Seth.
You Seth.
Or like Samuel.
Fine. So it was quite simple. I just sat on a rock.
Just release it
for 2 hours, and it was something that at the time for me was very pertinent. It was the front of my consciousness, and I think when something is at the forefront, if you dive into it, you realize it's like a bubble. It's looks like it's really big and intimidating and overbearing, and you just penetrate to the center of it, and then it'll burst, and you realize there's no pain attached to it anymore, and the triggers that would normally have set that off just aren't there. They don't exist anymore. So
do you have any suggestions of places for people to
look,
like start
Finland.
that journey? Maybe.
Yeah, I listened to
Finland.
Where did you go?
Yeah, it was in Finland. Well remembered.
Shit. Nice.
So there's a few resources to start with, but I've not read this, but this might be a more accessible one. Is a book called Radical Acceptance, because I think the methods that I use kind of twisted into each other, and there's too much to trace back from. But literally just sitting and diving into the story, all of the physical sensations, all of the thoughts and beliefs around it, and just keep diving into it until you're fully comfortable with it, because what you're probably doing is holding it away in some capacity, and if that approach doesn't work, then the Byron Katie method that Jonny mentioned is very effective for interpersonal griefs.
Just anything that happens.
Basically
anything in your life, you can use that process for. Ask 4 questions and
Flat tire.
Gary Weber is a good guy to look into for this stuff, because he did this with just everything in his life, and then and created it.
He took Byron Katie
and Sedona method.
yoga, meditation, all to 11, didn't he?
He just took more to 11. Yeah. So and he's functionally changed his brain, and it's been replicated on fMRIs. Like, he's just got a permanent shift in the way that his brain works.
If you watch the Daniel Ingram interview with Yusef, Daniel Ingram on Skype, the YouTube video, you can just tell. Just watch the way that he expresses himself.
It's just fine about everything.
Totally he's 100% present.
Can you look into that camera and do it for me?
He's 100% present, completely emotionally neutral, bit happy.
bit happy.
There's like a tinge of this is fun.
Yeah. But if it changed, it would be fun.
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So watch the interview with Daniel Ingram.
Great.
We couldn't get Gary Weber on the podcast.
He declined.
Motherfucker. Yeah. Last one. Where did the inspiration to do the podcast come from? From Sean J. I did CrossFit on the Propane Fitness podcast, 3 years ago? Yeah. 2.5, 3 years ago.
Time ago.
In our office. Really enjoyed the process, love having discussions, decided that I wanted to do it more.
What was the first episode?
It wasn't Stu Morton, Rowing the Atlantic.
Rowing the Atlantic.
Number 1.
Fuck yeah.
Then Life Hacks 101 and 102 and number 2 and 3.
When I started CrossFit, I went back and listened to the episodes with Jordan and
episode 4
Paul
and 5
and Tim.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Time ago,
They're
those
good ones.
But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. 100 episodes deep. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you
for doing 100 episodes of Modern Wisdom.
Great questions.
Great questions.
They were really good questions.
We'll do another Q&A if you want. Any comments that you have, obviously, leave them below if you're on YouTube. If not, if you're on iTunes or wherever else, leave us 5 stars. It does make me very happy and it helps with the show's rating. What have we got coming up? Bloody hell. We've got Chelsea Ferguson, the girl that owns admireme.vip, which is a really interesting way that girls have decentralized the ability to earn from their nudes. Who thought that was going to be a thing? 2019. We're going to do more business principles, more life hacks will be coming. And fuck knows, we've got another 100 episodes to get to before we have to think about something cool to do for episode 200. So.
I think by episode 300, Q&As are just going to be links to other podcasts. Doesn't matter. Whatever anyone asks us, it'll just be episode 13, 29, 124, and we'll just have all that. In fact, that should be the mission. To be absolutely
index.
To have indexed your knowledge into podcasts so effectively.
So no human can come up with a question that hasn't already been answered, and then it's whoa.
And then someone will have to, like, the IBM Watson, like, make a new one of them to ask us a question.
Like to create new prime numbers, or like
a Bitcoin miner to find the next possible question.
Yeah.
But then we'll just make a new podcast.
And then we're all done. Don't forget, follow the guys from Propane Fitness. They do post some interesting stuff and they have a fantastic podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much indeed. 100 episodes. We did it, baby. Yes.
Okay, bye then.